Hi, I'm Tristan, and this is Thinking About Politics. So today, we're going to be talking about that weird Arizona ballot review that's going on right now. But before I get started, if you've been here before, why don't you go ahead and like and subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a comment, let me know how you're doing. And if you haven't been here before, don't worry about it. This is a freebie. It's on me. So the channel Let's Talk Elections has just dropped a new video about what's going on in Arizona and that review of the ballots there and how it is tremendously unpopular amongst the American people. And now, look, this is not the place to debate whether or not the election was secure. It was. There's enough evidence out there that if you really wanted to know what was happening, you can. There's absolutely nothing to suggest that this wasn't anything but a secure and fair election. Or as Let's Talk Elections puts it,
this isn't a partisan thing. This is not some type of biased statement. I can't make it clearer. The 2020 election was a fair election. And if you don't agree with me, then you're just wrong.
So yeah, that's where we're coming from. And in this video, Let's Talk Elections asks a very interesting question.
57% of Americans say they view that these audits are partisan efforts to determine undermine valid election results. 57% means almost all of the Democrats, many independents, and potentially some Republicans. And just 1/3 of them say they are legitimate efforts to identify potential voting irregularities. So with just 1/3 of America on the Republican Party side with these audits, I don't entirely understand why they continue to do them.
You see, while 1 in 3 Americans may buy in to lies about election irregularities or other shenanigans, 2 in 3 Americans do not. For about 57% of Americans, this is a partisan effort, according to Let's Talk Elections. Yeah, you know what? It's a valid question. If these ballot reviews are not yielding any sort of appreciable benefit in the polls, why are Republicans poised to pursue them in other states as well? Again, in the absence of any evidence of fraud. Well, I don't know exactly who to point the finger at, mind you, but one way to think about the question is this. What are the reasonably foreseeable outcomes about lying about an election, about lying about fraud? If an outcome is reasonably foreseeable enough, isn't it rational to assume that person intended what was reasonably the foreseeable outcome of what they were doing? I mean, if I throw my drink at my date, it's reasonably foreseeable they're going to get, upset. Is it not, reasonable to assume I wanted them to be upset? So while we're thinking about what's reasonable, let's also, up front, what's not reasonable? The president is not going to be reinstated here.
Unless I'm mistaken, this is the first forensic audit of a presidential election. Forensic. So we don't know.
Do you genuinely think there's a possibility that the election
that Trump could obtain the electoral slate of Arizona? Yes, I think that's a possibility. And if that happens, could it happen to Georgia? Possibly.
Yeah, no. A former president is not going to be reinstated based on a flimsy partisan review of some ballots by some group. There's no constitutional mechanism to make that a thing. But there is at least one other reasonably foreseeable outcome, and that's political violence. Violence and lying have a long history in politics. We can't discount the possibility that there are at least some people out there pushing that here for political ends. And I want to be clear. I know that there are a lot of people who have just been lied to. Politicians, journalists, internet personalities who feed into and spread this stuff and should know better. Well, yeah, they're intentionally creating a greater risk of violence. And the risk of violence is rising.
The FBI warns QAnon followers may carry out acts of violence against, quote, perceived members of the cabal, such as Democrats and other political opposition, instead of continually awaiting Q's promised actions, which have not occurred. So the FBI has warned, obviously, Mike, as you're well aware, that QAnon believers may carry out more acts of violence. They've talked about, for months, about that Myanmar-style coup in the United States, which former General Flynn encouraged.
It was a false election.
So...
And they took over, and that's what happened. The military took over.
That could possibly happen here, possibly, if the military is in control.
Think that's what they're working towards.
Would you think that's what could happen?
That's what I think.
Would you like to see it happen?
Absolutely.
I would like to see it happen.
Really?
Yes.
You know why? because the election was stolen from us.
The military is doing their own investigation, and at the right time, they're going to be restoring the republic with Trump as president.
We've already done a video on what's happening in Myanmar and a video on the weird obsession these people have with what's happening there and making it happen here. You know, it's an undeniable fact that when you tell people that their country is attacked and you tell them that they need to defend it, a certain number are going to answer that call. We've already seen political violence out of this movement. The Capitol attack on January 6th was just the most dramatic example of this. And certain elements of this movement have a worldview that pushes them to commit more.
Mike Rothschild, who is the author of The Storm is Upon Us, How QAnon Became a Movement, Cult, and Conspiracy Theory of Everything. Do you believe QAnon is a real security threat at this point?
Absolutely. This is a movement that has always yearned for a kind of military dictatorship to take over and get rid of the people that they dislike. And with QAnon, this is a prophetic movement. They believe that there will be a great event that only a few select people know about that will sweep away all of the corruption and evil and restore goodness and patriotism. So what you have now is not a prophecy of Trump getting rid of all the bad people, but a prophecy of Trump being restored to office. And that's really where these people are looking right now.
So you see, for those who are perpetuating these lies, not those who are just mere dupes, but those who are truly should know better, they are intentionally creating a greater risk for political violence to attain political ends. Let's talk elections. You wanted to know why Republicans continue to push these sham reviews of the 2020 elections in different states? Well, I'm sure for some it's just a way to stoke up the base and generate energy before the 2022 election, I'm sorry. But for some it's an on-ramp to violence. And that's what makes these claims so very dangerous. So that's it for me for now. Thank you so much. You know, we'll be back with another ballot question bonanza later on this week. So until next time, keep thinking.